Good morning, beautiful people. Today I want to talk about identity, or rather self image, in practice. And I just wanted to share some of my experiences over the years with self image that may come up during the meditation practice, particularly in the form of resistance. Um, Obviously, as we go deeper in our practice, things may or may not come up. But often when they come up, one of the um, common things is dealing with self image. Now, throughout our lives, we all have some sort of self image that we grow up with. Some of them were given with our parents when we're practically born. And we carry that self image with us throughout our life. But as we go deeper and deeper in our practice, in our self awareness, that sort of self image might take a sort of identity as its own and have its own pull its own weight, so to speak. So as we're going deeper and deeper, our self image may actually take us further away in the form of resistance. Um, some of the self images might be someone who likes to make money. It might be being a teacher, for example, just randomly, being a mother, being a businessman, being a tough guy, um, whatever it may be. And for me, probably one of the most difficult things was to let go of that self image. Even in terms of practical matters, it was very, very difficult to let go of someone who works and makes money. And obviously, making money is a noble thing, looking after your family is a noble thing, no doubt about it. But the problem for me arises when it interferes with what you're called for to do and with your practice. And like I said, it was one of the most difficult things when I tried to give up full time work, steady full time year round work, because it didn't make me happy, and do work part time or casually rather, and dedicate myself fully to my practice of meditation. Maybe not all day, every day, but being able to go to retreats and taking some time off for myself to deepen my practice, because that's what made me happy. And there was nothing more difficult than than sitting out in the morning and doing my meditation out in the porch and listening to people going to their work with their cars, with the music, with the phone calls in the car. It was very challenging, and for the first little bit, it would just pull me away from my going to retreats and so on. But I had to come in terms with it, and I had to realize the one shift that I had is I just told myself, look, meditation is my practice. Everybody works certain hours a day. I do certain amount of meditation every day. And it helped me, but it still lingered. It wasn't like overnight. And I like to invest in real estate and that sort of thing. And that identity really pulled me away. I thought that I was leaving money on the table, all that stuff. But it really wasn't. It was my self image pulling me away from what I needed to do, from what I loved most, which is practice meditation, and to really go deeper in my practice long term. Um, or in society, you see sometimes people, this is rather extreme, but I don't know why it came to my mind, is like someone being a thug or being a tough guy and not taking anything from anybody, always being right. That might be a sense of identity. Um, there are many ways. I'm not gonna go into that because there are infinite number of identities we can take on. But I find it's very important to be aware of it as we pursue our practice. Just being aware of the self image that we have. And the reason for that is very often that self image becomes a mask so tightly attached to our face, to our identity, that is difficult to let go of it. And I don't mean we don't have to give up those identities. We don't have to give up being a teacher. I don't know why teacher comes to mind. or being a businessman, or being someone who makes money, or being someone who does this or that. Even though being a teacher, being a businessman, being a father, being a mother are just the most noble things in the world. Everything we do for the good of others is a noble thing. But the problem is when it takes a life of its own. And those masks become very, very heavy, very difficult to take off during our practice, during our meditation, in our spiritual journey. And that's when it usually becomes a problem. That was the case with me. So our ego sort of gets attached to that identity and doesn't want to let go of it. And that's usually becomes a problem. But as we go further, we want to really go beyond any sense of identity of who we think we are or who we think we were, and just go deeper and deeper. And as we do that, I'm told our identity completely changes, right? I was just a few months ago, I was at a retreat, and this Zen master, we have only like 90 seconds of one-on-one during the day, and it's very, very formal. And he said, look at these rocks, look at these trees here. You think they're separated from you, but they're not. There is no separation. Realize that. Go harder in your practice. Something along those lines. And it's very true. It took me a couple of weeks and months to realize maybe it wasn't just a pep talk. Maybe it was a reality that he wanted me to pursue. So a sense of identity, in essence, is there's no separation. And it's like the story of Adam and Eve when they were talking and walking with God, which is most likely just a metaphor, but very real. They were naked and they were not aware of being naked, but when they entered duality, then they became ashamed of being naked, and famously they covered themselves with fig leaves. And so it's with us. We think we're naked without our identity, sense of self, this and that. I'm this. I'm from this background. I'm from this culture. I'm from this job. I this and that. And it's very, very hard to let go of it. But at some point, it seems, in my experience, we have to let go of it, and we have to go deeper, dive deeper, deeper, deeper into who we truly are. And there's a very, very famous Zen koan that is given to people, and it says, "What was your face like before your parents were born?" And the truth is, we did not have a face, right? Or maybe everybody's face is our own. Either way, but it's really important to ponder on it, because very often when we sense resistance, that may be one of the root causes of it. And let's take this deeper, shall we? Identity does not have to be a job or ethnic background or culture or making money or anything else. Identity can be something that we pick up because of our life experiences, right? Sometimes when we grow up in difficult situations, in difficult surroundings, in difficult times, we may pick up the identity of being a victim, right? If we had very harsh upbringing, we may think we're always the victim and nothing ever works out for us. Or we might think we're a failure if we grew up in, say, poverty, or not being given enough love and attention, and not being raised with a proper self-esteem and faith in ourselves. We may have this identity of being a failure. Of course, we don't walk around with a hat saying, I'm a failure, but it's just a sense of identity that we may not even be aware of it. 95% of the time, we're not aware of these things, but they're in the background. They're in our subconscious mind. They're what's the word? A thought pattern, a behavioral pattern that we pick up, as for example, being a failure. But we know that everybody can pretty much learn anything. It's proven. So the identity might not be a job or a group of people. It might very well be something that we picked up because we had no other choice, such as being, for example, thinking we're a failure or thinking that we're a victim. And a big one for me was a sense of helplessness, because for so many years I tried to pursue spiritual teaching, but I failed because I didn't have the right coaching, or perhaps because I had underlying trauma that needed to be addressed. But those years were very difficult, and it sort of um, erodes the faith in yourself. And that's in the background. So when you go further and further, part of you says, hey, hold up. I don't want to go there. I'm not worthy. It's not going to work out. I'm a failure. Everything I do in my life ends in failure. Why acquire the extra pain of failing again, for example? And that's why it's very important to do the felt sense. And that's why very important to even honor and appreciate the bad days that we may be having, and going deeper and deeper, because those things are gold, right? Turning shit into sugar, as the saying goes. Turning those negative experiences into something positive. And even realizing that we have those self-images of being, for example, a failure or helplessness, learned helplessness. Those things become our identity. It's not that we failed in the past. We see ourselves as a failure. It's not that we experience circumstances beyond our control. We become that helplessness. And that sort of behavior, that sort of thought pattern crystallizes into an identity. And very often we can't escape it because we're not aware of it, right? That's why it is important to work with a good teacher who is good for you. So we have established that there are self-image that are given culturally, economically, and so on. There are also self-images that we acquire because of our life experiences for many, many years. If you've been helpless for 10, 20, 30 years, do you think it's easy to overcome it overnight? Probably not, but it can be done. But all we really have to do is be aware of it. It's like being a thief at work, stealing people's lunches. We don't know who it is, so everybody's on guard and anxious. But when you realize who it is, then that anxiety sort of goes away. This is what happened. So is with trauma, so is with all these obstacles. The moment we become aware of it and we realize that it's a lie, being a victim is a lie, being helpless is a lie, that sort of unravels itself. And that's, in my experience, is the proper way to doing it. Reciting, what's the word? Reciting like, I'm happy or I'm doing well, I'm a winner, all day all night probably won't bring anything. So let's take it even further, shall we? Those identities that we pick up are actually not necessarily bad things. Those are things that we acquired for a reason, and they serve our purpose. So, for example, the identity of being helpless, being a helpless victim, for example, in life, in our relationship with other people, or feeling unloved, or feeling unworthy. Those are actually good things. Why are they good things? Because at a certain point in time, they were there to protect us. So we shouldn't get angry of them. We should honor them. We should appreciate them. We should be grateful for them. Those identities are be picked up at a certain time for a certain purpose, to learn certain lessons. And they were there to protect us. Let me tell you a story. Last year, I did 2 sessions, meditation retreats, week-long meditation retreats, very intense, in Europe. And after the first one, I had a very hard time. But after the second one, the second retreat was very, very strange, because I did everything well according to what I was told to do, but I was the only retreat where I could not stop thinking. The first day I could not stop thinking, which is normal. The second day, there was always this tension that would be on the surface, and I could not go deeper. Day 6, where you should be really relaxed, really in tune with your practice, never came. I was still thinking. And I remember day 7 in the evening, just before the finishing ceremony, my mind was still racing, and I just said, "It's nuts. It just simply is nuts. Something is wrong." And it was very difficult when you're putting so much work into something, when you travel halfway across the world and all you do is think. It's very frustrating. I understand it. So I got back, and my teacher emailed me, said, "Hey, how did it go?" And I said, "It went okay, but I'm gonna cut back on my retreats and I'm gonna practice on my own because I was so full of thought, it's not even worth it." And the teacher, in her infinite wisdom, said, "No, no, 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 no. Keep doing what you're doing. It's a good thing. You're at the very, very crucial point," she said via email. She said, and I hope I don't cry when I say that, she said, "You're exactly where the Buddha was when he was meditating, and Mara, part of his ego, came and tried to seduce him, and it didn't work with woman dancing, his daughters dancing. And then Mara turned around to him and said, you're not even worth it. Why do you even bother doing it?" So he said, "You're at the very crucial point where we all have to be at some point. He says, just keep doing it." So I kept doing it faithfully, and I realized my folly because I was going to change everything and do different things. But I stuck it out, and after 2 weeks, I realized that it was the hurt that was preventing me from going further in my practice. But it wasn't the whole thing. So another 2 weeks passed, exactly 1 month after my previous sessions where I could not stop thinking. And I went to a session, a retreat where I usually go with my teacher, with my Sangha, my community. And I remember the first evening, we started at 7 o'clock. You have an opening ceremony, you meditate for about 40 minutes. The teacher talks. But I was still thinking very intensively, and I could not relax. So what I did is like, this is nuts. I'm not going to go through this whole week just tense and thinking, not being able to relax. Just not going to happen. I'm not going to go through it. So what I did is grab the blanket, sat outside, and really focused on that sensation of this resistance. Right? And I sat with it for a long time. With it, this tension that would prevent me from relaxing and meditating, and I could not relax. I could not meditate for whatever reason. And after a long time, I finally asked this, like, what are you protecting me from? Something that I had learned. And it said, obviously not with words, but I knew intuitively that tension, it said, I'm protecting you from getting hurt. And the insight that I had is many, many years ago, I went through some very difficult experiences. I basically had a nervous breakdown when I was 16 or 17. And part of me was protecting me from going further in my practice because it didn't want to get hurt. All those negative emotions were actually underneath it. It was like a floor of a building that you're ripping apart. Underneath it, there is a lot of hurt. You don't want to see that hurt. So that intense thinking was holding me back from going further because I didn't want to discover that hurt, and I didn't want to get hurt again, part of me. And I realized, I sat there for a long time again, and I said that I'm not the person that I was when I was 16, 17, and I can handle it, and I need to go further, and I need to discover it. Anyways, to make a long story short, at that moment, everything completely changed, and I went to deep, deep meditation. And that retreat was the best retreat I ever had. They're all good, but this particular one, I went deeper and deeper, and I had the best meditation I have ever had in my life. And my teacher was surprised. There were three of us. It says, "This is an exceptional retreat. All of you guys kept going deeper and deeper and deeper every single day." It's rare to see that. So the point that I'm making is the identity that we have, it's probably there for a purpose, and it probably served its purpose, and it's time to move on, right? So we have to have always compassion with whatever comes up, no matter how hurtful it is, or no matter how ugly it may look. To do that, so it's very, very important to go deeper, and it's very important to be aware of identities or self-image, and it's very important to let go. But our ego is so attached to those stories of who we are, our identity, our self-image, that it holds on to it, and very often it pulls back, like it did with me when I could not even think for could not even meditate really, practically, for the better part of a month, and that wasn't the only time. But it's very important to have, as my teacher says, radical honesty in our practice, and be completely open to whatever comes up, because that gives us the food to work with, gives us the opportunity to work with whatever hurt we're feeling this way. It's not good to turn away, say, "No, that's not me. Oh, no, no, I'm this amazing guy." And let's take this further, shall we? An identity does not have to be something negative. It doesn't have to be like helplessness, or being a victim consciousness, a victim identity. It can be the opposite thing. It can be thinking we're this amazing seeker. Oh, I'm such a seeker. Oh, I read spiritual books. Oh, I have such and such teacher, which at some point we start off with, right? But at some point, it's even important to let go of that seeker identity, and really be in tune with the practice and what we're doing, and the